Hi and welcome to another episode of PDA Dads UK. In this episode I'm going to be looking at the process of diagnosis and in particular the issue of parent blame. So as I say, welcome back to PDA Dads UK. We are back and it has been a long holiday period and somehow managed to make it through. Before I go on any further, I'd love you to just go, hit like, hit subscribe, and make sure you ring the bell so that you get notifications of when new content goes up. I'm back and it's going to be a regular thing again, so please do that. And it makes a big difference just to how many people get to see these videos due to YouTube algorithms and all that kind of stuff. So as I say, what I want to talk about this week is in particular parent blame. Now this has come about because I've seen it a lot. So the group I run on Facebook for parents of autistic kids, it's something that we come across a lot. A lot of people seem to experience. And I'm going to tell you a bit of our story. And this has come about because we had a monumental, significant occurrence a couple of weeks ago in that we actually got finally an official diagnosis for my daughter. Now we have been trying to get this diagnosis since she was 3. When her nursery first picked up that there were differences and they probably needed to be addressed or at least looked at. It's been 8 years of trying to get my daughter diagnosed with everyone knowing that she's autistic. So the school, she's in a special educational needs school because she couldn't cope with mainstream schooling. She has to have a one-on-one 100% of the time, and that's been since the day she started school. Basically within a week of her starting school, they identified there was an issue and they gave her a one-on-one, and that has never ended. And it's ridiculous that it's taken so long. And we've talked about it on this channel a lot. We talked about it on the Grumpy Dads and the Grumpy Kids. The process and the time frame for diagnosis is utterly ridiculous, and it's made so much harder when you bring into things like masking and stuff like that, which we've talked about on this channel a couple of times. You know, the issue there that if the school don't see it, it seems to not exist, even though masking is an established part of autism and what takes place within an autistic person, and that need to fit in and comply, but bottling it all up. Do go check that video out. The link will be in the description. So we finally got an official diagnosis. We've had a working diagnosis for years. Finally got the official diagnosis, which makes a big difference when, if we need to go to hospital or anything like that, we now have it in the system that my daughter is autistic and she will need extra support in those situations. The journey we went on to get there, as I've said, was ridiculous. And we went through a lot of pain and a lot of heartache that was completely unnecessary as a family. And I think this is what gets missed. The impact isn't just on the autistic person themselves, although that's probably the most significant impact. And it's established that unless autism is addressed early, it can lead to far more damaging and difficult issues down the track. So, especially with girls, bipolar disorder is often related to undiagnosed autism early on. In fact, there's a lot of misdiagnosis of bipolar because of the fact that someone's autistic, but it's led down that path. It's well established and it's a real problem. But the knock-on effect for us as a family was huge, and it didn't need to be that ridiculous. And the issue is parent blame. And I come across this so often, and it's something we went through to an extreme, I would say. Now, there are things intertwined into that. My wife struggles with mental health, and she's quite open about that. She has bipolar disorder and other complications in there as well. The difficulty is that when that was being diagnosed is when we were seeing the same sort of issues occurring with my daughter, with knowing that something was different and it being autism that was present. So as I say, the first people to pick up on this issue were my daughter's nursery, and this was prior to my wife's diagnosis. And that was referred to early on, as I say, nursery age, 3-4 years old. And When she hit school, she was referred again because they could see something was challenging. The problem that really occurred was that nobody wanted to acknowledge that autism was present. Nobody wanted to acknowledge that my daughter was autistic. And whilst people recognized it, everything else was blamed first. And the first thing they do is go toward parenting. And we had to go through parenting courses, and it was ridiculous. You know, they'd sit there telling us, well, you know, what we recommend is using reward charts. And it's like, we've used reward charts. They don't work for my daughter. She gets too frustrated. She tears them up. And there's no part of the way my daughter operates with the PDA side of her autism is that if she can't really focus on rewards unless something's immediate. There's no recognition there that she can't piece it together, if you like. If there's a reward down the track, so after days, it just means nothing to her and she won't refer it back. It's just part of her autism within her and who she is. She just can't do that. So we went through a lot of that. And in fact, at the time, we ended up being referred to social services. Now, the school did the right thing. There was an issue with my daughter's aggression, which is an established part of PDA, obviously. And, you know, they referred a MASH report to you know, say there's an issue. Social services became involved and we went through hell as a result. I don't want to go into too much detail. We've actually discovered that a lot of the stuff that we were put through was done illegally. It's one of those things that I wish at the time we just didn't know. We'd never experienced anything like this. And to be honest, when you're being told you suck as a parent, at first you just believe it. And we did. We thought we're doing something so wrong. All these other people around us are doing so well, and yet here we are struggling. And so we went through the parenting courses and we went through the family therapy and all this kind of stuff. And it was all about how we were parenting. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And it was a long, long process. And social services acknowledged that they stuffed up. They did things wrong. But that's all you get. Oh, sorry, we messed up. And sort of an apology and move on. And you feel like you're in a fishbowl when you're going through that. We went through this hugely. You're constantly being watched and monitored, and it just adds pressure on pressure on pressure on pressure. You've got the pressure of a child who is struggling, seeing your flesh and blood, really, really struggling with life, wanting to help but not knowing how to, reaching out wherever you can to get that help and it not coming. And in fact, all you're just getting is, well, you suck, so you need to change. Trying to change, trying to adapt, trying to take on all the advice they're giving, however, none of it working, because ultimately the issue is that my daughter is autistic and the way her brain processes the world around her is different and her anxiety levels are higher. And because of her anxiety, she has a PDA profile because she needs to be in control, which is a subconscious way of controlling the anxiety. We've looked at all that with the previous episodes and looking at PDA and what pathological demand avoidance is. And it's so, so hard. And I see it come up a lot. We get a lot of posts, a lot of anonymous posts that people put up saying, you know, we're struggling, and the time frame is ridiculous. Now, we put our information in way early, and it was initially rejected because my daughter was too young, which is a contradiction in itself, because they say, you know, the earlier you can identify that a person is autistic, the sooner you can put in strategies and supports that will help them manage their autistic tendencies and know how to deal with them. And again, I'm not saying it needs to be removed, but the coping strategies with anxiety will help a person live a more fulfilled and happier life. That's just basic. My daughter was struggling, and we had to watch her struggle through all this, feeling impotent and helpless to do anything about it. And Cam's lost paperwork. We went through a lot, a lot of mistakes that were made, and they were made by others. We've had these referrals in, we've repeated them, we've done them over and over again. She's needed special educational needs schooling because she just couldn't cope with mainstream, and in the end they had to place her in a special educational needs environment because that was what was required. The school that she's at would have told everybody, yeah, she's autistic, you can see it. Everybody she's worked with has said there's this is so clear. But getting that official piece of paper took 8 years from the first time that we put a referral through. And in the end, it took me making an official complaint through PALS to actually get things rolling. And it's sad that the only way that you can get anything to work at the moment is by being loud. So I've referred to before, I call it a squeaky wheel system. And unless you're making noise, you're not going to get the oil. There's a big part of me that thinks that it's deliberate because people give up. And so it costs less for the government, which is just so backward thinking. A, it's not putting the support in place that's required. But B, it's costing so much more down the track. Treating someone for bipolar disorder because they didn't recognize autism earlier on, it's costing so much more in mental health services. It's costing more socially. We're losing people because people are, struggling and hitting these low depressions. There's suicides, there is, self-harm. There's all this stuff that comes with it. Whereas if it can be identified earlier on, it can be addressed, the anxiety can be helped and supported, and you can move forward and help and support your kids and people in general. It costs so much less. Parent blame is a massive issue, and it's something that really does need to be addressed. The process of time that it takes to go through a diagnosis and get it officially done. And the woman who phoned us to say it's official was like, I don't think this was unexpected, was it? It's like, well, no, we've been doing this for years and years and years. We've had to complain because we've, just been fobbed off at every available opportunity. If you are trying to get diagnosis, and this is the thing, the parent blame, it says that everybody knows best except you as a parent, and that is so not true. Parents know their kids, and having had a neurotypical son now and seeing the differences, if we'd had it the other way around, I think we'd have been a lot more alert to it and able to really step in a lot faster. But you believe what you're being told. I suck. I thought I was just a really bad parent. My wife thought the same. It put pressure on our marriage, it put pressure on our lives, it put pressure on my job, it put pressure on my kids, it put pressure on the schools. Everybody suffered. If you're going through it, make the noise. Don't be afraid to make those phone calls, send those emails. Make the point. You know your kids best. And I'm really fed up of seeing this happen so often where people are just fobbed off because it's just easier. The system's underfunded, the system's under too much pressure. Well, the system needs to change. It needs to be a national standard. We've talked about all this before, but the whole idea that it's left to individual councils, to manage this and make these decisions is so wrong. There needs to be a national standard for how you define things. The fact that pathological demand avoidance is only recognised in 30% of the country and diagnosed is ridiculous. It's a recognised form of autism. It's on the spectrum. Everybody talks about it. It's known. It's there. It's far more common than people realise. The amount of people who've got in contact with me because they're seeing, I think this really fits. And when you see that list of traits that are listed for pathological demand avoidance, it's like reading a blueprint. It was for my daughter. It was like, that's her. I mean, you literally could have just written that about my daughter. Make the noise. Keep fighting and don't give up. Keep hammering away, keep phoning camps, keep chasing schools, get masking understood, get all these things in place, and the more noise you make, you will actually get that support because you're just that annoying, irritating thing in the background that they just want to go away in the end. It sucks that the system works that way, but that's how it works currently, and if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do for your kids and for yourself. One of the things that I often hear is, what about the labelling and stuff like that? It's not about labelling, and you don't need to share that information. You only need to share it with the people you need to share it with. But as I say, for us, when we go to my daughter's got to have a tooth, a root canal in a few weeks' time, and she needs to go to hospital. She can't cope with dentists and the sensory overload that comes from being at a dentist, so she needs to go and be put under a general to do the root canal. When we go to do that, we've had to do it once before, and they didn't understand. It wasn't on paper that she was autistic, and so they didn't pay any attention to anything, and they were trying to force her to put cannulas in and all this kind of stuff. Now that we've got this on paper, we've been able to call and say, look, she's autistic, here's what we need to do. So they're now going to put the mask on first, let her get sleepy, and then put the cannula in, so that it's just reverse. You know, the complications are easily addressed if you do it properly. We can do that now because that bit of paper's there. It services you, it services your child, it services, I think, society as a whole. That's all I've got to say on it. I think it's something worth considering, and I think if you are trying to fight for this, make the noise, keep fighting, keep shouting, keep in their ear, and get it done for everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. As I say, please do subscribe, please do like the video, and please do hit the bell so that you know when we've got new content going online. There's a lot going to be coming up over the next few weeks especially. If you haven't heard already, I'm going to be speaking at NIDEX with part of the Grumpy Gits. Please do check that out. You can see the link in the description, and hopefully I'll see you guys at NIDEX. Until then, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.